Hey, it's Jeff with ELearningCareer.com. If you've been applying for e-learning developer or e-learning design jobs and you're just not getting anywhere, you can't get your foot in the door, you can't get an interview, it may be that your resume needs to be rescued. So that's what this video is all about. You might need to take a look at your resume and rethink some things, refresh it, rescue it. I've been in learning and development for the past 25 years, and I've worked for a wide variety of companies, big and small, including CarMax, IBM, even Walt Disney World. So I have been through the job search many times. I feel your pain. But the good news is I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about how to present my resume so that I can get those interviews and ultimately get the job. And so that's what I want to share with you today. And not only have I been on the job searching side, but I've also been part of teams that were the ones reviewing resumes and deciding on who we would invite back for an interview. So I have that perspective as well. So this video is going to be focused on e-learning type jobs, but I also have a couple of other resume rescue videos for you to check out. So be sure to look at those if you're interested in other L&D type roles. But let's go ahead and jump into our e-learning jobs resume. So here is an example resume, and as you can see, I've changed the name, I've changed the job titles and the locations because I'm not trying to embarrass anybody or anything like that. But I do want to show you what an actual resume looks like, and this is actually very typical of the types of resumes that I have seen. So I've got 5 big main tips that I want to share with you today for rescuing your resume. And the number one tip, number one thing you've got to do with your resume is make sure that there are no spelling or grammatical errors. And I don't know if you've already noticed it yet, but this one has an error. And so you can see right here in the very first paragraph, they're interested in becoming an e-learning designer, okay? And it talks about implement the training / safety needs of the organization. So right off the bat, I see this and I'm like, wow, this person didn't proofread their own resume. And remember, your resume, that's your first impression. Like that's what's going to get you in the door to get interviews. And if you can't bother to go in and fix errors like that, you're going to have a hard time. So if you already know, if you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I know I have a spelling error in mine, fix it. Please fix it. If I'm a decision maker looking at this resume and I see this right off the top, this is a red flag for me, because when I think about the e-learning that I need for my company, and then I worry, well, if this person couldn't even proofread their own resume, then what kind of quality work are they going to put out for my organization? So is the e-learning they produce going to have a bunch of spelling errors, grammatical errors? I don't know. So that might, I might not even look at the rest of the resume, because if I see that, that's an immediate red, like I said, it's a red flag, it's a turnoff, and I might just say, well, nope, this is not the person for us, just based on that. And that happens. So that's why I say, like, number one, you've got to get rid of the spelling errors, whether you use a spell check or a grammar program, or get someone else to look over your resume. You've got to be sure that everything is correct, okay? So that's my number one tip. Let's move on to number 2. So tip number 2 is I would spend a good amount of time, if you're building up your resume or you're rescuing your resume, refreshing your resume, I would spend some time looking at job descriptions. So let's go look at some job descriptions. Right here is, this is just Indeed.com. here's an e-learning developer position. So I'd go in and I'd start, and if you're doing e-learning, I would also be flexible with the job titles that you type in. You can put in e-learning developer, e-learning designer, but you're probably also very likely to see a lot of e-learning related job duties with instructional designer jobs. So keep that in mind as you're job searching. But anyway, my second tip is to go in and take a really good look at some of these job descriptions, because these will give you a clue about what employers are looking for and what they want to see on your resume. So for example, here I am on this e-learning developer job description. And what are they looking for? It looks like they want me to design and develop online courses, including demonstrations, videos, simulations. They want me to manage the content development process. They want me to work with subject matter experts. So these are all things that the employer is looking for. And so when they're looking at my resume, and in fact, remember, your resume, more likely than not, is going to be looked at by a computer before it even goes to a human being. And so what is the computer going to be looking for? It's going to be looking for these things that are in the job description. It's going to try to make a match between your resume and this. So this gives you a really good idea of the types of things you'll want to include on your resume. Moving on to tip 3, what I would also start to do, so you want to look at what the employers want, but then you also want to really take an inventory of your skills. So a lot of times when we create a resume, I'm going to go back to that resume. A lot of times when we put together our resume, we're very literal about all of just our job duties. Well, these are the job duties I did for this job, this job, this job. But what you really should be doing outside of the resume is to take stock of the skills that you have built. So what I like to do is I'll use a worksheet or something like this. So this says instructional design, but this could be used for instructional design or e-learning because a lot of the skills overlap. But basically what I would do with something like this is I'm taking a skills inventory, because there are certain skills I want to make sure I highlight on my resume. But the thing is, sometimes we forget, like if I haven't, maybe it's a job from 5 years ago, maybe I forget that I did some e-learning stuff or instructional design related stuff. So this is part of a tool that I've created. It's called the L&D Resume Experience Builder. It is free. Let me just add, it is totally free. I'm going to link to it in the description, but this is something you might find helpful to do your own brainstorming, because what it does is it asks questions like, have you ever helped create a job aid? And let's get more specific for e-learning. So have you used graphics or photo editing software? So if you've used Photoshop as part of another job, that's a skill that is transferable to an e-learning job, typically. Have you used video editing software? Have you used e-learning authoring software? So this is a place where you can really brainstorm and start to really think about your skills as they relate to an e-learning job. And then, there's a notes section, but anyway, so this is a tool that you can use. So that's step 3. And then step 4 is to make sure that I've put these skills into my resume. So let's see if that is the case on our example resume. So if I look at this, thinking about what I saw in the job description, and then I look at this resume, let's see, I managed, trained, and developed a team. I managed fleets of vehicles, ran car rental branches. Now here's one, designed, developed, and delivered curriculum. Okay, that's maybe related. other duties, overseeing the nesting environment. Really, generally speaking, I'm not seeing the e-learning experience. I'm not seeing the experience that the employer is looking for. Now, does that mean this person didn't have any of that experience? Not necessarily. They may have some of that experience, but they are not reflecting it on the resume. And then another thing, this is something too. And again, I did not make this up. These are the skills and interests that this person put. Look at these skills and interests. AutoCAD, Google Earth, art, yoga. What? Like, as an employer, hiring for an e-learning development person, e-learning designer, I do not care about yoga. I could care less. I mean, that's great that you do yoga. Good for you, but this is wasted space. You really want to make sure that your resume is in sync with what the employers are looking for. So let me just show you an example. So in my resume, I actually have an area at the top I call areas of expertise. And so a lot of the stuff that the employers are looking for, I will list that out there because I want them to see right up front, hey, I can do what you're asking people to do. And then I also scatter it throughout my resume in the experience. I also, at the bottom, so I don't talk about yoga or whatever, what other random interests I have. I also see here at the bottom, I have keywords. And again, with the thought that a computer is most likely going to scan my resume before it gets to a human. So I plug in a lot of the keywords that I know employers want to see. And then I can expand on that in the interview. So once you've identified what the employer wants, you've identified the skills that you know you can do, then you want to go in and put those things in your resume. And I'll show you real quick too. I have a page in the tool to help you, again, kind of figure out what all you want to put into your resume and how to phrase it. So it's another resource for you as part of this overall tool, which again is free and I'll link to in the description. So hopefully that'll help. Now, the fifth and final tip that I have for you in rescuing your resume. So we've talked about the importance of identifying the skills that the employer wants, identifying the skills that you have, and putting those into your resume, and not having a bunch of grammatical and spelling errors, right? Then the last thing I would do is I would also look at the things I do not have experience in, because there probably, as you look at different job descriptions, there will very likely be some things that you see that you're like, wow, I don't have experience in that. So let's go back to the job description. And so here, they want you to have proficiency with common e-learning authoring tools and web development software. And they mention Articulate Studio, Storyline, and or Adobe Captivate. And then they talk about experience with learning management systems. So maybe you've been taking some Storyline courses, because Storyline is a very popular e-learning authoring software. So that's great. So you've got that. But maybe you realize, wow, I actually have not used Captivate. Maybe that's something I need to look into. Or LMS, like that. You're probably in e-learning jobs, you're probably going to see LMS mentioned a lot. You might realize, wow, I really don't have a lot of experience or any with learning management systems. So one of the worksheets I have on here is where you identify 3 top skills that you want to develop, where you realize, wow, I need to get some experience with that. So maybe you put Captivate here, maybe you put learning management system. And then I have a section where you kind of think about how I'm going to get that experience. And it could be maybe at your current job. Maybe at your current job you say, hey, I would like to help with the learning management system. Or maybe you volunteer somewhere. You know, there's a lot of different ways for you to get experience. A lot of people get scared about the fact, oh, I've never done that. But you'd be surprised at where you might be able to pick up some experience. And I usually say start with your current job and see what you could do there. But anyway, this is again, this is in there for you to use and brainstorm and come up with a plan. And then that way you are constantly building those skills, and you'll be able to add them to your resume later once you have something that you can put on your resume. All right, so those are my 5 tips for your resume rescue. Again, my free tool will be in the description. There's a link to that, so you can grab that if you'd like. I will also link to an article called The Ultimate Guide to Getting an L&D Job. That's out on my website, so I'll link to that. It's got some really great information. In addition to resume advice, it's got interview advice, portfolio, so that's a really good thing to look at. And don't forget, I also have a couple other resume rescue videos here on the channel, so be sure to check those out. Please like if you found this helpful, and we will see you next time.